Hey everybody, new video here. So as you can see, the damage on this build is absolutely kind of insane. That was an Uber Shaper with about 4.5 man HP because two allies and then three mercs in the party. Um, so I'll talk about a couple of the changes that I've made. Um, First off, I have dropped Headhunter on the mercenary. Um, Now, if you're wondering why I sound very different, I'm on my travel setup, so I don't have my reasonable quality mic. I'm working with the crappy headset mic. But basically, we've dropped the Headhunter in favor of a Stygian. Um, the biggest reason is actually because of what I'm assuming is a bug. Currently, if you pick up the Rare Monster Fleas mod with Headhunter, I'm pretty sure it lasts forever. So not only does your Merc run away from everything and not attack for the 60 seconds, I'm pretty sure it just keeps going for the rest of the map. On top of that, I can tell this because when I take off the Headhunter on the Merc, that AI behavior of the Merc running away sticks around. And so that maybe has to do with something with Mercs snapshotting their gear when they walk into a zone, or it's just a bug. And even still, that behavior of just 60 seconds, if it was just 60 seconds, kind of kills Headhunter for me. So I've changed a lot of the gear. Um, I'm I'm pretty sure that spell damage actually doesn't give you damage with the Merc's KB. I don't really have a lot of evidence to indicate this. It's just a feeling. So I've swapped back to a Piscator setup with corrupted AoE, mostly because AoE increases the shotgunning you get with KB. So you get maybe like half a hit or one extra hit in per animation on the Merc, and that makes it actually one of your best stats up to a certain point, maybe like 50% AoE. So we get it here on the wand and on the shield as a hunter suffix. Is that? I think it's a suffix. Um, that's prefix. So, right, this is just like a pretty garbage shield, just as much fire res as possible, and crafted double damage with AoE. Like I bought this for about 100 C and put the bench mod on it, called it a day. Um, Now, the gloves, I bought slightly better versions with just as much fire res as possible and increased damage. And someone in the comments informed me that Rage does work on mercenaries. The reason I didn't think it did was because I neglected to account for the fact that Calm's spirits, when I was using them, does not stop the inherent 10 rage loss per second. And so that's why my Merc didn't have rage with Calm's spirit, because they didn't have enough regen. And this rage implicit is not limited by a time factor, so you can just hit an enemy 15 times in a second and be at half your max rage. So this mod, if you've hit enough recently, is basically worth 30% more damage. It's by far your best mod on a glove. And then it's just whatever garbage flat mods you can get, a lot of fire res, fire exposure, which is kind of whatever. There might be some better implicits, but it's just something right now. Um, and then just increased damage. And as we also have that on the belt here. Now the belt also has a Stygian in it, which is garbage flat and a lot of fire res. Mostly I wanted the sound of shattering enemies, so I added the lightning damage because lightning damage
Back
is
to the
what allows
grind,
me
I
to shatter
suppose.
things with three dragons, which is the other key change. Um, Having your fire damage being able to shock is a huge deal. It can be up to a like 40 or 50% more damage multiplier because there aren't really a lot of ways to get an increased enemy damage taken modifier on the enemies. And I'm not self-casting a Sniper's Mark, even though I really want to. The only thing I'm really worried about is that the Merc will just override Sniper's Mark with Elemental Weakness. So I have to figure out some way to kind of shut that down, which nothing is really coming to mind for that. Um, Now, lastly, the boots I've managed to get pair with fire res. The elusive on the boots probably isn't necessary. It's just something that might be convenient for mapping to make your merc a little bit faster, but your merc just kind of teleports to you if you get too far anyway, so you can just shield charge along. And then I got implicit res here on the Mary Leans. So that's basically most of the gear changes. If I go into a Blood Aqueduct, you'll see that I've basically capped the pen on the Merc with without using that bullshit amulet that people seem to think is good on mercenaries. So with the flask on, my Merc is at 292 pen or 292 fire res, which is the basically two over the res you need for the pen on the ring here, because it's capped at 200. Um, Apart from that, build is still really fun, apart from the obvious AI issues. Now, on my character, I've mostly just changed a few points here and there. I picked up a little bit better of a timeless jewel with 3 and dropped 1 reservation node to kind of make it work. Um, I don't know if I mentioned this in the last video, but the auras affecting enemies is superseded by Hand of Freesia gloves. So this mastery tattoo is basically just a free 15% reservation. There's no reason to not use it. I also added in global defenses because global defenses is a really crazy stat, and the downside of 10% reduced attributes is super easy to build around. And I plan on using the tattoo that reduces the effect of the mods on your boots, but increases the effect of the mods on your gloves to squeeze out a little bit extra aura effect. I also dropped the medium cluster jewel here because I was able to pick up a higher quality core skating elixir, so I'm at the slightly over 15-second duration core skating elixir breakpoint, which basically means you just need 3 points and 4 tattoos to pick up your permanent core skating elixir. So that leads to the last thing is just Senator, specifically just for this flask. I ultimately don't think Senator is going to be required late game because there's most likely going to be some other random things that I can do to increase the fire res, such as wearing an Ashes of the Stars for extra quality on the purity gems. We give the mercenary extra res, which would open up your belt slot for Tides of Time again, or also getting a Mage's Blood should you want to do that. And in order to run a signature, you need to be using the Pathfinder Ascendancy, which I'm getting from Forbidden Jewels. You just buy whichever of these 3 is cheapest, and then your attributes come later. So make sure that you get your Forbidden Jewels as soon as you can in your build, and then fill in the attributes on your cluster jewels as needed. One thing that I'll note is there are 2 things that are really going to hard carry your energy shield on a character like this. The first thing is the body armor. Mine is just okay. It's not crazy, but it's good enough. I'm planning on recrafting a different version of this later. However, once you get an acceptable energy shield body armor, really most of your energy shield is going to come from having cluster jewels that have flat on them and then flatten attributes. Okay, that one's pretty garbage. Yeah, stuff like this. Like this is a really crazy one. You get chaos res, int energy shield, all attributes int energy shield, just the typical Aurabot stuff. That's gonna be like 100 div to buy, and really, really, there's not a better way to craft these besides just using Alt Aug Regal and fracturing, as far as I'm aware. And that's mostly just due to if you harvest reforge defense, you're gonna hit defense notables, which are basically worthless on this build. And then if you use dense fossils, you're also going to run into the same problem. So really the only way is if that jewel requires chaos res, you can reforge chaos, and there's only 1 notable you can hit for malevolence reservation efficiency. And then you basically just have to luck out on all the other 3 mods if it's not fractured. So yeah, that's pretty much what the sequel is. When I have a little bit more time to play, I'll probably come out with 1, maybe 2 more videos, just kind of taking the build to where it can be at the very top end. But you know, there's like only a very limited number of things I can play with mercenaries. That's one of my pet peeves with mercenaries. I don't like the fact that we can't choose their skills, we can't choose their support gems, and there's no tree to work with them. It's just whatever you can cram into the 10 gear slots here. So if you have any questions, leave them in the comments, and I'll do my best to answer them. So yeah. One thing that I almost forgot to mention was about the support gems on KB. There's really 3 that you're looking to have as like the main 3 you must eventually reach these. The most important one, in my opinion, is Pierce. This is mostly because there's not a lot of great ways to put on the build aside from basically wasting an anoint to pick up 2, or wasting your boot slot, or having really difficult to craft boots that give you 2. So if you don't have it here, you need to get at least 1 or 2 from one of those spots on your character, or your mercenary rather. The next most important is returning proj. This is just straight up double the damage. You can't not have this if you want to do Ubers. And the last thing is critical strike chance. This is basically equal to +1 max power charge for critical strike chance. And it's kind of what carries the crit chance with Mary Leans, because without it, instead of being on about 80% crit, I'd be at about 70 on the Merc, which is still kind of playable with Mary Leans, but it makes it a lot less worth running. Um, so just be aware that when you're grinding your maps, if you see a KB of Clustering, Infamous, Kineticist with those 3 support gems, it's most likely going to be a pretty good Merc. Whatever else you get, for example, Crit Multi is not bad. Attack speed is not bad either, but I think the next best one is like elemental damage with attack skills. I'm not exactly sure what the rules are for what support gems can roll, whether some are mutually exclusive with others potentially, or whether it's just strictly random. I have no clue, but find these 3 and you'll be in good shape. Another thing is that if you're really trying to grind a mercenary and you're made of money, just open T17s and find a level 84 Merc, because I'm assuming that those have at least slightly higher stats. Although, as you can see, level 83 is doing perfectly fine.